Who is watching your thoughts? Imagine you are sitting alone in a quiet room. No one is talking to you. No one is touching you. Your phone is somewhere across the room. Your eyes are closed, and then a thought appears. Maybe it is a memory from 10 years ago. Maybe it is a worry about tomorrow. Maybe it is a completely ridiculous image that makes no sense at all. You did not consciously decide to create it. It simply appeared. So here's the strange question. Who noticed it? You might say, I did. But what exactly is the I that noticed it? Because there seem to be two things happening inside your mind at the same time. There is the thought itself, and there is something that seems to be aware of the thought. You can notice that you are angry. You can notice that you are afraid. You can notice that you are thinking about someone. You can even notice that you are distracted. In other words, you can think about your thoughts, and that creates a strange loop. If you can watch your thoughts, then perhaps you are not identical to your thoughts. But if you are not your thoughts, then what are you? And if there is something inside you watching the stream of your mind, who is watching the watcher? This question sounds philosophical, almost mystical. But underneath it is one of the deepest problems humans have ever encountered. It touches psychology, neuroscience, philosophy, meditation, artificial intelligence, free will, memory, and the nature of consciousness itself. We know that thoughts happen. We know that brains are involved. We know that changing the brain can dramatically change personality, memory, emotions, and behavior. But we still do not have a complete explanation for the most basic fact of all. Why does any of this feel like something to someone? Why is there an experience happening from the inside? Why isn't the universe simply processing information in the dark? And perhaps most strangely, why do you experience your own thoughts as if you are watching them happen? The voice inside your head. Most of us spend enormous amounts of time listening to a voice that nobody else can hear. It says things like, I should have said something. What if this goes wrong? I need to remember that. Why did she look at me like that? I'm tired. I wonder what would happen if... Sometimes the voice is calm, sometimes it is cruel, sometimes it seems to know what it is doing, sometimes it says things that surprise us, and sometimes it refuses to shut up. Yet there is an important detail that we rarely notice. You can hear the thought without hearing it with your ears. You can experience words internally without producing sound. Psychologists sometimes call this inner speech. It can feel like someone is talking inside your head. But who is speaking? If you deliberately say to yourself, I am going to stand up now, it feels as though you produced the sentence. But then consider another situation. You suddenly remember an embarrassing event from childhood. You did not order your brain to retrieve that memory. It arrived. A song appears in your head. You did not choose it. A person's face pops into your imagination. You did not consciously construct every detail. A disturbing thought appears that you would never actually act on. You certainly did not invite it. Thoughts often behave less like commands we issue and more like events that happen to us. That is easy to miss because we are so accustomed to them. Your mind constantly generates suggestions. Your conscious awareness then encounters many of those suggestions and experiences them as my thoughts. This raises an uncomfortable possibility. Maybe consciousness does not produce every thought. Maybe consciousness often observes thoughts that the brain is already generating. That does not mean you have no control. You can deliberately solve a problem. You can choose to study. You can stop yourself from saying something cruel. You can decide to change your habits. But the machinery producing the next thought may be much larger and stranger than the little voice in your head makes it seem. Your brain contains billions of neurons communicating through enormous networks. It is processing memories, sensory information, emotions, predictions, bodily signals, language, and countless other things without requiring your conscious attention. By the time you become aware of a thought, some of the work that produced it has already happened. So perhaps the conscious mind is not the CEO of the brain. Perhaps it is sometimes more like a narrator arriving slightly after the action. And if that is true, then we need to ask an even stranger question. If your brain generates a thought and you become aware of it, where exactly does the you begin? The thought you never chose. Try something simple. For the next 10 seconds, do not think about a pink elephant. Seriously, Do not imagine one. Do not picture its ears. Do not picture its trunk. Do not picture it standing in a room. Whatever you do, don't think about the pink elephant. You already lost. The moment you were told not to think about it, the concept entered your mind. This is a small demonstration of something important about mental life. Trying not to think about something can require you to keep checking whether you are thinking about it. And checking requires representing the thought. The mind can become tangled in its own instructions. Now try something even stranger. Close your eyes and wait for the next thought to appear. Do not choose the thought. Do not predict it. Just wait. Maybe you get a sentence, maybe an image, maybe a memory, maybe a sensation, maybe you suddenly wonder whether this experiment is working. Whatever appears, ask yourself, did I know what the thought would be before it appeared? Usually, you didn't. You can decide to think about a particular subject, but you often cannot decide exactly what the next mental event will be. This is one reason meditation can feel so strange when you first try it. You sit quietly and attempt to focus on your breathing. Then your mind produces a memory, then a plan, then a fear, then a song, then an imaginary conversation. Then you suddenly realize you have been thinking for 5 minutes. And there is the important moment. You notice that you were thinking. That means there is a distinction between thinking and knowing that you are thinking. The second ability is sometimes called metacognition, roughly the ability to think about your own thinking. It is one of the most remarkable things the human mind can do. A calculator calculates, a camera records, a thermostat measures temperature, but humans can turn attention toward their own mental processes and ask, why am I thinking this? Is this belief actually true? Why did I react that way? Where did this idea come from? Why am I afraid? Am I fooling myself? The mind can become an object to itself, and that creates the strange sensation of an inner observer. The theater in your head. One popular way of imagining consciousness is as a little person sitting inside your skull watching a screen. Your eyes send information inward. Your ears send information inward. Your memories appear on the screen. Your emotions create the background music. Your thoughts appear as subtitles. And somewhere behind everything sits you, watching. It is an intuitive picture. It is also probably misleading, because if there were literally a little person inside your brain watching your thoughts, we would immediately have another problem. Who is watching the little person? And if there is another observer behind that one, who watches them? You could continue forever. Philosophers sometimes describe this as an infinite regress. The mistake is assuming that awareness must belong to a separate little observer inside the brain. Maybe there is no tiny person. Maybe the experience of being an observer emerges from the way the brain organizes information about itself. Consider a camera. A camera can record a person. But if you put a camera in front of a mirror, the camera can record itself, recording itself. Now imagine a system vastly more complicated than a camera. It can represent the outside world. It can represent its own body. It can remember its past. It can predict its future. It can model what other people are thinking, and it can model its own thoughts. Such a system might develop something that feels like an internal point of view. Not because there is a little soul sitting behind the eyes, but because the system has created a model of itself as an experiencing organism. This is one family of ideas explored in modern consciousness research. It is important to be careful here. There is no universally accepted scientific explanation of consciousness. Scientists have learned a great deal about which brain systems are involved in attention, perception, memory, decision-making, and awareness. But identifying brain activity associated with consciousness is not the same thing as explaining why consciousness exists. We can map the machinery. The deeper mystery remains. Why does the machinery produce experience? Why is there a feeling of being someone? The problem, nobody has completely solved. Suppose scientists eventually built a perfect machine that could reproduce every electrical and chemical event in a human brain. The machine behaves exactly like you. It remembers your childhood, it recognizes your friends, it laughs at the same jokes, it becomes nervous before the same situations. It says, I am conscious. Would the machine actually experience anything, or would it merely behave as though it did? This is not just a science fiction question. It exposes a fundamental difficulty. We have direct access to our own experience. We do not have direct access to anyone else's. You know what your headache feels like. You do not know what another person's headache feels like. They can describe it, they can cry, they can hold their head. A brain scan can show activity, but you still cannot step inside their experience. You infer that other people are conscious because they behave like conscious beings and because they have brains similar to yours. This creates an extraordinary situation. The most obvious thing in your universe, your own experience, is also the one thing you can never completely hand to someone else for inspection. You can describe pain. You cannot transfer the exact experience of pain. You can explain the color red, but describing wavelengths is not the same as explaining what red looks like from the inside. You can describe love through hormones, brain activity, evolutionary history, memories, and behavior. But none of those descriptions quite capture the feeling itself. This gap between objective description and subjective experience is one of the central puzzles of consciousness, and it leads to a disturbing possibility. Maybe the person watching your thoughts is not a separate thing at all. Maybe the watcher is simply what it feels like when a sufficiently complex brain becomes capable of representing its own activity. But then, why do thoughts feel like mine? Here's another mystery. If thoughts can appear automatically, why do they feel personal? Why don't you experience them as random information arriving from somewhere else? Part of the answer is probably the brain's constant construction of a sense of self. Your brain does not merely process the world, it builds a model of you in the world. It tracks your body, your location, your memories, your goals, your relationships, your history, your preferences, your fears, your future plans. All of this information becomes connected. Over time, the brain develops a powerful narrative. This is me. This narrative is useful. It allows you to make plans. If you have an exam next week, you need a model of yourself as someone who will take the exam next week. If you hurt someone's feelings yesterday, you need to connect yesterday's action with today's consequences. If you want to become healthier next year, you need to imagine a future version of yourself. The self model is extraordinarily useful, but useful does not necessarily mean perfectly accurate. Think about a map. A map represents a city. It is useful because it simplifies reality. No good map contains every tree, crack in the sidewalk, insect, conversation, and grain of sand. If it did, it would become useless. The brain may work similarly. Your conscious sense of self could be a simplified model of an enormously complicated biological process. It feels unified because the brain integrates many different systems into a relatively coherent story. But underneath that story, there may be no single command center. There may be many processes competing, cooperating, predicting, remembering, evaluating, and reacting. The feeling of being one continuous I may be something the brain constructs from all of this activity. That does not make you imaginary. It means your experience of yourself may be more like a process than a permanent object. And processes can change. The self that keeps disappearing. Think about yourself at age 5. That child had different fears, different interests, different memories, different knowledge, different expectations. Even your body was dramatically different. Now imagine yourself at age 80. If you live that long, your body will change again. Your opinions may change. Your priorities may change. Your relationships may change. Your personality may change. Some memories will disappear. Others will become more important. Yet you will probably say, that was me. Why? What makes the 5-year-old you the same person as the adult you? It cannot simply be the body. The body changes continuously. It cannot simply be your thoughts. Your thoughts change constantly. It cannot simply be your memories. You forget enormous portions of your life. And yet, there is a sense of continuity. There seems to be a thread running through all of it. Some philosophers have argued that this thread is psychological continuity. Memories, intentions, personality patterns, and other connections link one stage of life to another. Others have questioned whether there is any deeper permanent self at all. Maybe the feeling of a continuous me is something like a flame. A flame looks like one thing, but the material making up the flame is constantly changing. You can point to the flame and say, that is the same flame, but almost none of the physical material present a moment ago remains in exactly the same arrangement. Perhaps the self is similar. a continuous process, not a permanent object, not a little observer hiding behind the eyes. A pattern that persists while its contents continually change. And if the self is a pattern, then the watcher and the watched may be parts of the same process. The mind creates thoughts. The mind notices thoughts. The mind creates a model of itself, noticing thoughts. And then the mind asks, who is doing the noticing? The system is looking at itself. The strange case of the inner narrator. There is another clue hidden in everyday life. You sometimes know what you are going to say before you say it. But where did the sentence come from? Suppose someone asks, "What is your favorite food?" You answer immediately. You probably did not consciously search through every food you have ever encountered. Your brain produced an answer. Then you became aware of it. Or suppose someone insults you. You suddenly feel anger. Your heart rate changes. Your muscles tighten. An angry thought appears. Only afterward might you think, why did I react so strongly? The reaction happened before the explanation. This happens constantly. The brain is always making rapid predictions and decisions outside conscious awareness. This does not mean conscious choice is an illusion. It means conscious choice may be only one layer of a much larger process. Think about walking. You can consciously decide to walk to the kitchen, but you do not consciously calculate the exact movement of every muscle in your legs. You don't issue commands like, move left ankle 3 centimeters, now adjust the pressure under the heel. Contract this muscle by precisely this amount. The nervous system handles the details. Consciousness operates at a higher level. You choose the destination. The machinery handles much of the journey. Thoughts may work in a similar way. Your conscious mind may establish goals and direct attention. But the enormous machinery beneath awareness generates possibilities, associations, predictions, memories, and emotional responses. Consciousness then experiences some of the results. This makes the inner narrator interesting. Perhaps the narrator is not the author of everything. Perhaps it is partly the storyteller. Humans are remarkably good at creating explanations after events occur. We do something and then construct a story about why. Sometimes that story is correct. Sometimes it is incomplete. Sometimes we may be confidently wrong. The mind does not merely experience events, it interprets them, and one of its favorite subjects is itself. What about free will? This brings us to one of the most uncomfortable questions. If thoughts arise before we consciously choose them, do we actually have free will? The question has been debated for centuries. Some experiments in neuroscience have been interpreted as showing that brain activity associated with a decision can begin before a person becomes consciously aware of deciding. These findings are fascinating, but they do not settle the entire free will debate. Why? Because choosing to press a button in a laboratory is not the same as making a life-changing decision. There is also a deeper problem. Even if your brain begins preparing an action before you consciously experience the decision, your conscious mind is still part of the brain. The brain does not make a decision and then send it to some separate entity called you. The brain is you, at least according to the mainstream scientific picture. So, if unconscious brain activity influences your choice, that does not automatically mean someone else made the choice. It means the conscious experience of choosing may not be the beginning of the entire decision-making process. This distinction matters. Imagine an iceberg. You see the small part above the water. Below it is a much larger structure. It would be strange to say the visible part of the iceberg is fake because most of the iceberg is hidden. Likewise, conscious thought may be only the visible surface of a much larger mental process. Perhaps free will is not the magical ability to create decisions from nowhere. Perhaps it is the ability of a living system to evaluate information, imagine consequences, consider alternatives, learn from experience, and act according to its goals. That kind of freedom can exist even if your brain obeys physical laws. The mystery does not disappear, but it changes shape. Instead of asking, did a ghost inside my brain make the decision? We can ask, how does a biological system become capable of controlling its own behavior? That may be the more interesting question. The watcher can be tricked. There is another reason to be cautious about the feeling of an inner observer. Your brain can produce powerful illusions about where the self is located. You might feel that you are behind your eyes, but certain neurological conditions can disrupt body ownership and create strange experiences in which people feel detached from parts of their body. Virtual reality can also manipulate the sense of body location. In experiments involving carefully synchronized visual and physical signals, people can sometimes begin to feel that an artificial body or object is part of themselves. These experiences reveal something important. Your sense of being a self located inside a body is not simply a direct readout of reality. It is constructed. Your brain receives signals from vision, touch, balance, movement, and internal bodily sensations. It combines them into a model. Most of the time, the model works beautifully. You don't spend your day wondering where your body ends. But when the signals are manipulated, the system can become confused. This suggests that the feeling of "I am here" is not necessarily evidence of a little observer sitting in a fixed location. It may be an achievement of the nervous system. Your brain continuously answers questions like, "Where am I? What is my body doing? What just happened? What might happen next? What belongs to me? What belongs to the outside world? What am I thinking? What am I feeling?" And from all of these answers, something resembling a self emerges. The watcher may therefore be less like a person inside your head and more like a continuously updated model of the organism observing its own activity. Meditation makes the mystery more obvious. You do not need a laboratory to investigate this. You can investigate it yourself. Sit somewhere quiet, close your eyes, pay attention to your breathing. Soon a thought will appear. Maybe you remember something. Don't fight it. Just notice it. Then another thought comes. Notice that one too. After a while, something interesting happens. You may begin to experience thoughts as events. A thought appears. It stays for a moment, then it changes or disappears. Another replaces it. A feeling appears. It changes. A sound appears. It disappears. Even your sense of self can fluctuate. There may be moments when you become intensely aware of your own existence, then moments when you become absorbed in a task and stop thinking about yourself entirely. When you are deeply engaged in music, sports, conversation, art, or work, the inner narrator can become quiet. You don't constantly tell yourself, "I am doing this." You simply do it. This suggests that the ordinary sense of self may not be a permanent spotlight shining from inside your skull. It may be something the mind continuously constructs and reconstructs. Meditation traditions have explored this idea for thousands of years, although they often interpret it through spiritual or philosophical frameworks that differ from modern science. Some traditions argue that the ordinary self is less solid than it appears. Modern neuroscience does not simply prove those traditions right, but the overlap is interesting. Both raise the possibility that our ordinary sense of being, a separate, permanent inner observer, may be partly constructed. And once you notice that, everyday life can look slightly different. You begin to see thoughts as things that happen, not necessarily things you must obey. A thought is not a command. This may be one of the most useful consequences of the whole mystery. If you are not identical to every thought that appears in your mind, then you do not have to treat every thought as a message from truth. Imagine waking up and thinking, "Nobody likes me." The thought feels convincing, but its emotional force does not prove its accuracy. Or "I'm going to fail." That is a prediction, not a fact. Or "I shouldn't have said that." Maybe you shouldn't have. Maybe you are being unnecessarily harsh with yourself, or a strange, violent, embarrassing, or absurd thought suddenly appears. The existence of the thought does not automatically reveal your character. Brains generate enormous numbers of mental events. Some are useful, some are nonsense. Some are memories, some are predictions, some are fears, some are emotional reactions, some are combinations of unrelated information. If you assume that every thought is me, you can become trapped inside your own mental noise. But if you can observe a thought, you gain a small amount of distance. You can ask, is this true? Is this useful? Where did it come from? Do I want to act on it? That tiny space between thought and action can be enormously important. The watcher, whatever exactly it is, gives you the ability to question the mind that produced the thought. That may be one of the most powerful abilities consciousness provides. But who is watching the watcher? Now we return to the original question. If you can observe your thoughts, then who is observing? Perhaps you will answer, my consciousness. But what is consciousness? Perhaps my mind. But what is the mind? Perhaps my brain. That takes us toward neuroscience. But then we encounter the deeper mystery again. We can describe neurons, we can describe electrical signals, we can describe brain regions, we can describe patterns of activity. But none of these descriptions by themselves seem to explain why there is an inner experience. Imagine you had a complete instruction manual for a human brain. It listed every neuron, every connection, every chemical, every electrical signal, every interaction. Would reading the manual allow you to experience what it is like to be that brain? Probably not. A recipe for chocolate is not chocolate. A description of music is not the experience of hearing music. A map of a city is not walking through the city at night. This does not prove that consciousness is supernatural. It simply shows that describing a physical system and explaining subjective experience may be two different problems. Some philosophers believe consciousness can ultimately be explained in physical terms. Others argue that our current concepts of matter and mind may be incomplete. Some theories propose that consciousness emerges from certain kinds of information processing. Others focus on the way information becomes globally available across the brain. Still others argue that consciousness may be a more basic feature of reality than we currently assume. None of these possibilities has settled the mystery, and that uncertainty is important. We should resist the temptation to fill the gap with whatever answer feels most satisfying. An unanswered question is not evidence for a supernatural explanation, but neither is the existence of brain activity a complete explanation of subjective experience. We are still investigating. What if the watcher is just another thought? Here's a possibility that becomes almost unsettling when you think about it carefully. Maybe there is no separate watcher. Maybe the feeling of being an observer is itself another mental construction. Consider the sentence, I am watching my thoughts. Where did the I come from? Perhaps the brain generated a thought containing the concept of I. Then another process recognized that thought. Then another thought described the experience. I am aware that I am thinking. The brain can representing itself. Like two mirrors facing each other, the system can create layers of self-reference. But there may be no final observer at the center. No tiny person, no hidden captain, no little consciousness sitting behind consciousness, just a recursive process, a system capable of modeling its own activity. This idea can feel disturbing because our intuition strongly suggests there must be a central me. But intuition evolved for survival, not for solving metaphysical puzzles. Your brain needs to know, is that animal dangerous? Where is my body? Can I reach the food? Who is a friend? Who is a threat? It does not need to provide you with a perfect theory of consciousness. The feeling of being a unified self may simply be extremely useful. Useful does not mean ultimate. The universe looking at itself. Now take the idea one step further. Every atom in your body came from the physical universe. The elements in your bones, blood, muscles, and brain were forged through cosmic processes that began long before you existed. Your brain is made of the same basic physical stuff found throughout nature. And yet somehow this collection of matter can look outward and ask, what is the universe? It can look inward and ask, what am I? It can wonder whether other minds exist. It can imagine galaxies it will never visit. It can think about the beginning of time. It can question its own existence. There is something almost poetic about this. The universe contains objects that can become aware of the universe. Whether consciousness is simply an emergent property of complex brains or something more fundamental remains an open philosophical question. But there is no mystery about one fact. You are part of nature trying to understand nature. The observer is not standing outside the universe. The observer is inside it. That means every question about consciousness is also, in a strange way, a question the universe is asking about itself through a human brain. Not because the universe necessarily has a giant mind. There is no solid evidence for that, but because consciousness exists as a real phenomenon within the universe, and consciousness can investigate the universe. That alone is extraordinary. What happens when the watcher goes quiet? There is another experience worth considering. Have you ever been so absorbed in something that you forgot yourself? Maybe you were running, playing music, painting, reading, dancing, building something, talking with someone you love. For a moment, you were thinking, I'm a person having an experience. You were simply experiencing. The constant commentary disappeared. There was still awareness, but the narrator became quieter. This distinction matters. Maybe consciousness does not require the constant presence of a verbal self. Maybe the story of me is only one layer of consciousness. There can be seeing without thinking about seeing, hearing without describing the sound, feeling without naming the feeling, moving without narrating every movement. The inner voice is not necessarily the same thing as consciousness. It is one part of conscious experience. This is easy to forget because language is powerful. We tend to identify ourselves with the sentences running through our heads, but before you could speak, you were already experiencing the world. Before you could describe yourself, you were already alive. The story of me came later, and perhaps the story will eventually become quiet. Not necessarily because consciousness disappears, but because the mind's constantly talking about itself. Have the most uncomfortable possibility. Suppose one day science explains consciousness completely. Suppose we discover exactly how brains produce subjective experience. Would that destroy the mystery? Maybe not. Imagine discovering exactly how music affects the brain. Would you stop enjoying music?